All right, let's just jump right in. There's this one question that hangs over everything in the Middle East. Could Iran and Israel actually go to war? I mean, a real, direct, all out war. Okay, so in June 2025, they did. Wow. That's a heck of a statement, right? Now, let me be super clear. This hasn't happened. It's a fictional scenario. But to really get a grip on the risks we're facing today, we're going to walk through this story because it shows just how thin the ice really is.
See, the whole story of Iran and Israel, it's probably not what you're imagining. We're talking about a journey from being quiet, practical allies, to sworn enemies. And if we want to understand how a war could even happen, we've got to go back and see how we got to this point in the first place. So let's start right there with that future flashpoint. We're calling it the 12-Day War of 2025. And look, while this is just a what if, it's all based on the very real tensions and the actual military power both countries have right now. So just picture this for a second. It starts with a surprise Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear program, and Iran's response? It's massive. We're talking over 550 ballistic missiles and 1,000 drones lighting up the sky. It escalates so fast that the U.S. gets pulled in, striking 3 Iranian nuclear sites themselves. And after 12 brutal days, there's a ceasefire, brokered by the U.S. But it's fragile, you know? And the cost? It's just staggering. Over 1,100 dead in Iran, 32 civilians killed in Israel. It's a terrifying scenario because it feels so plausible. So that just makes you ask, right? How could two countries get to such a devastating point, especially when they don't even share a border? Well, the answer is way more surprising than you think, and it's hidden in their shared history. And here's the twist. Believe it or not, Iran and Israel, they used to be allies. I know, looking at the headlines today, that sounds completely impossible, but it's true, and you absolutely have to understand this part to get the whole picture. Just look at this timeline. Their early relationship was a total roller coaster. In 47, Iran actually votes against the UN plan that created Israel. But then, boom, just 3 years later, they become the second Muslim-majority nation to officially recognize Israel. Then it flips again, and then back again in 53 when the Shah returns to power. That's when this secret partnership really starts to cook. So why did they team up? Well, it wasn't because they were best friends. It was all business, pure pragmatism. Israel had this strategy, the Periphery Doctrine, which was basically about making friends with non-Arab countries to feel less alone in the region. And for Iran under the Shah, it meant getting top-tier intelligence training from Mossad. For Israel, it meant getting oil. It was this quiet, deep, and super useful partnership for both of them. And then, 1979 happened, the Iranian Revolution. This wasn't just a new government taking over. No, this was an ideological earthquake that completely shattered Iran's view of the world and its relationship with Israel. And really, this quote from Ayatollah Khomeini says it all. The new thinking was simple. America was the great Satan, and its closest friend in the region, Israel, was the little Satan. Just like that, in a flash, that practical alliance was gone, replaced by this deep ideological enemy status. And you really get a sense of how complete this flip was when you see it side by side. Under the Shah, you've got recognition, oil deals, security partners. After Khomeini, all ties are cut. Israel is declared an enemy, and Iran suddenly becomes the biggest champion for the Palestinian cause. I mean, they literally gave the keys to the old Israeli embassy in Tehran to the Palestinians. That's how you send a message. Okay, so this new hostility didn't immediately lead to a big open war. Instead, it kicked off decades of what we now call the shadow war. It's a conflict fought behind the scenes, through proxies, secret operations, sabotage, and cyber attacks. And this gives you a feel for the deadly rhythm of this shadow war. It's this constant back and forth, a real tit for tat. Israel gets blamed for things like the Stuxnet virus that hit Iran's nuclear facilities, or for assassinating their scientists. And on the flip side, Iran funds groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, attacks Israeli-linked ships, and launches its own cyber attacks. It's the simmering war that's always happening just below the surface. And if you want just one example of how wild and high-tech this shadow war has gotten, look no further. In 2020, Iran's top nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was taken out by a machine gun controlled by satellite that was mounted on the back of a pickup truck. I mean, that sounds like something out of a James Bond movie, but it's the reality of this conflict.
So this brings us all the way back to where we started, to our fictional war in 2025. And it makes you wonder, okay, why should someone living halfway across the world even care? Well, because a direct war between these two powers would absolutely not stay in the region. The economic shockwaves would hit every single one of us, and you'd feel it first in your wallet.
And it all boils down to one of the most important shipping lanes on the entire planet, the Strait of Hormuz. Every single day, 20 million barrels of oil squeeze through this tiny waterway, right on Iran's doorstep. To put that in perspective, that's about a fifth of the oil the whole world uses every day. So what do you think happens when a war threatens to shut that down? Well, this chart gives you a pretty stark picture. In our scenario, the price of a barrel of oil just skyrockets from $70 to $120. And that means higher prices at the pump for you, higher heating bills, really higher prices for pretty much everything, everywhere.
But here's the thing that most people miss. It's not just about oil. As much as 30% of the world's fertilizer exports also go through that same strait. So a war there doesn't just spark a fuel crisis, it could trigger a global food crisis. Soaring fertilizer prices mean higher food costs for all of us, and maybe even real shortages for the most vulnerable people in the world.
So when you step back and look at the whole incredible story, from these unexpected allies to bitter enemies, from a long shadow war to the absolute brink of an open one, it leaves you with one final, really unsettling question. In a future fight like the one we've talked about, is the goal actually to win? Or is it just to create chaos? The kind of chaos that would completely upend the Middle East and have consequences for every single one of us. Now that's something to think about.